Hello, my name is Tanmay Singh and I'm a student of CSC 19 batch at Bias Bimta. And our today's topic for the webinar is need for green computing as you can see on that screen. So let's get started. So in the past, as you can see, 6-7 years ago, back in 2010s, most of the fraction of the companies and firms used to think it as a trivial concept. Not much attention has been given to this. But in 2020, most of the small to medium firms and companies have started adopting and implementing the concept of green computing to ensure the future of our lifestyle, our current lifestyle, which can change drastically if we depleted our resources for rare metals from earth and also polluting the further than. Okay, so yes, there may be few concepts that also check our moral and ethical values also, because we are on the brink of depleting our resources. That's where green computing, as suggested by the name, calculate. For example, as suggested by the names green computing. So there is computing by presenting the green data. What is computing? For example, there is a calculator. We give it two numbers and it operates on the commands given like addition to add and multiplication and division to divide. Just like that, we just give the green data, the data we have been collecting, our resources, how fast they are depleting, what is their rate of generation, how long will they take to replenish, etc., etc. And we then calculate them and arrange them in a data that give us a clear picture or just an idea, a rough idea that what we will be seeing in future 10 or 50 years. So it helps us calculate various facts and life of resources depth and methods and reusability of electronic waste disposal. So at the start, I will just there is some boring part that you would say that is theory. But as we move forward, we will also come across some facts where this theory will help you understand how I am relating green computing to our life so much. Okay, so let's get started. So yeah, first question is what is green computing? We are talking about green computing. Green computing, also known as green IT, is the study and practice of environmentally responsible use of information technology, designing, manufacturing, disposing of computers and servers, and to reduce the hazards, material, maximize energy efficiency during product's lifetime. So from the first point, we know that it is a form of green IT. We take the green information that is from information technology, we take the green data, then we study it and we practice environmentally responsible use of information technology. We apply it on our environment as an information technology to get results. Designing, manufacturing and disposing are the results. The designing of the computer servers, how to make them efficient, use less power, which in turn put less pressure on our power generators that are dams, that are running from coal plants, that are nuclear reactors, etc., etc. To reduce the hazards of material, maximize energy efficiency during product's lifetime. Like, for example, in our PC, there is a chipset, which is made up of semiconductor, and semiconductor uses cadmium, which is of course important. But when a lifetime of a computer ends, we just scrap it. Okay. Now, if you think about a small chip, who would have cared about that small chip? Nobody. It will just what would you say? It will just be forgotten by everyone. We just use its body or scrap metal and we just reuse it. That small part, nobody will think about it. But little by little, our big reserves will disperse like this in our crust, and also will go and meet in our groundwater and our soil, which will deplete its what would say depletes its natural quality lesser quality, etc. Okay, so now on to the next slide. So here we will see that what is the need for green computing. Actually, green computing benefits the environment. That's we already get to know from the first slide that green computing is for environment, is to benefit the environment. It reduces energy usage by using green techniques that translates, that converts into low carbon dioxide emissions, which we will learn further about in the further slides about the carbon footprint and the carbon dioxide emissions stemming from a reduction in the fossil fuel used in power plants and transportations. Conserving resources means less energy is required to produce, use and dispose products. Put it simply, saving energy is resources saving money. And saving energy and resources saves money. We can also see it as a point. There was a fact that if green computing should have applied 4 or 5 years ago by big firms, then around 960 million dollars, US dollars, I'm talking about US dollars, 960 millions of US dollars would have been saved by now because of less consumption of energy required in the methods. So let's move on to some facts. Here are some facts that I'm presenting you. It's purely taken from the internet and being researched to the depth that they are true or not. Okay, so they are 100% true and been researched by McKinsey and various famous laboratories. 90% of companies with large data center will need to add more power and cooling within the next 2 years. So 90% of the companies with large data centers. So first of all, we will learn about what is data centers. Data centers are actually a physical facility that facilitates servers, networks, and etc. Like computer components like routers and things, and connect them to make a data center for which stores the business data for big firms. Like it's always important to think long term about how to maintain their reliability and security. The mainly consist of servers. Okay, so servers will get heated. SSD will get heated when they are supplied with power. So to keep them cool and keep them defect free, we have to cool them. And for cooling them, we use various types of cooling methods like liquid, metal, and water and air cooling. Various type of cooling is used, which also consumes a lot of power. So 90% of the companies with large data centers will need to add more power and cooling within the next 2 years, because if they produce so much energy, think about a data center. The energy is coming in the form of AC and it will convert to DC. Some energy will deplete there in the form of heat, and some energy will be used, and the left out energy will be used by the data centers. Okay, so that energy which depletes as heat will be uh, uh, so that energy will be left out in the environment and it will contribute in environmental global warming in the form of heat energy. The atmosphere temperature will increase as a whole, and that increase of temperature will need to require more cooling power to cool the same thing they were cooling 2 years or 1 year ago. Okay, so 90% of the companies with large data center will need to add more power and cooling within the next 2 years, and that's a fact. I cannot present data; it's not that much accurate, but it is short that we will need more power. A study by McKinsey found that among a total of 458 servers at 4 production data centers, 32% of them were running at low or below 3% peak and average utilization. Study by McKinsey found that. Okay, so first of all, who is McKinsey? Actually, McKinsey is a company that plans worldwide management consulting strategies and management consulting services for other firms. Okay, so in short, they provide plans to business and companies to increase their efficiency and longevity. It's a worldwide certified company, and that company has found that out of 458 servers at 4 production data centers, 32% of them are running below 3% peak. Means their consumption, they are having same share of energy, but wattage and energy, but they are running below 3% peak. Means they are not working up to the mark, and that extra energy is being wasted. So these type of data centers have these servers, and these servers called zombie servers, which are not living up to their expectations, but they are eating the same energy as a healthy server. Okay, so these types of zombie servers are prime candidates for unplugging to free up space, power, and reducing cooling needs. So we have to replace these zombie servers with the new servers, which will also cost money. So that's also a fact. So speaking of which, companies can reap a 65% reduction in server count through virtualization. So your mileage may vary. So speaking of which, companies can reap a 65% of reduction. 65% of reduction server count is too much. Think about the energy used by 65% of servers will be used at somewhere else, and they will be required less cooling, less energy consumption, resulting in less carbon emissions too. So through virtualization we can achieve. But what is virtualization? So let's study about virtualization first. So virtualization. Virtualization is a term used to mean many things. Okay. Whenever somebody say virtualization, in my hand there comes a virtualized box that I am making inside my computer in its broader sense. But in reality, it refers to the idea of sharing. Whenever a computer shares one thing to another computer, it's the data state will not remain static. It will move to one computer to another computer, and that's what we call virtualization. To understand the different forms of virtualization and architectural implications for creating and deploying new applications, Microsoft company proposed a reference model in their Green Maturity research paper in the Architectural Journal to describe the different forms of the concepts. I think it was this research paper was published in Architectural Journal of 2018, describing the different forms of the concept. The concept here is virtualization. In this model, we observe a number of different layers of abstraction at which virtualization can be applied. So we can say that virtualization has been divided into several categories and can be applied. So which we describe as increasing levels of maturity. So there is a low level of maturity, then there is a high level of maturity, then there is another high level of maturity. So maturity here refers to the seriousness, how serious this cloud making is. So the serious the cloud making is, the more virtualization is used, hence less carbon emission. So in the next slide, we will see about what is this model is. So let's see. So in this slide, we can see that there are 4 levels: level 0, level 1, level 2, and level 3. As described in the Architecture Journal 2018 by Microsoft, the level 0 is named, the name of the level 0 is local. The applications working in it are dedicated to their own computers. They are not yet moved, means no virtualization has occurred yet. The infrastructure is fixed, the location is distributed, and ownership is still internal. So the infrastructure means the physical facility they are being kept in is still in its place. The location is distributed, meaning several branches of the same company having data. And the ownership is still internal, means the ownership is still in the main building. Okay. And as we move to the level 1, here where the virtualization starts, and we see the name logical. Here the logic start bending itself into forming what we call in future the cloud. Okay, the applications start sharing. The first connection would be made is between the client and the server. Okay, the infrastructure is still fixed. The data centers are still in their place, but they are now sharing data to the client from the server. So, and the location became centralized. By sharing data, we can just shut down all of our branches and can focus on one centralized area where we will keep all our data. the ownership still remains internal, as we cannot make move the location. Location is there, so the ownership will also be there. So as we move to the next level, that is the level 2, we can see that data center uh, have been made, okay, and applications are now shared. Now there is a specific facility, there's a discrete facility for keeping all the data, and the infrastructure became virtual. So the data center is keeping all the data, and that data is being supplied to our computers, and every computer is in connection with each other. So the infrastructure is now becoming virtual. We can just use one data center, we can just divide its internal data space. It's like using a single SSD, but having two partitions on it, and two partitions working as two units. Okay, the best example in this case would be the VPN, the private network viewer, virtual private network. Without setting up an actual environment for a private network, we can just click on one button in our PCs or mobiles, and we can see our position change from India to Singapore, Singapore to USA. So that's the example of level 2. And then we move to the level 3. Here's the pure virtualization occurs in the form of cloud. Software became a service. Infrastructure became virtual. Location became virtual. Even ownership became virtual. By application became our software is now a service. Then infrastructure became virtual. That's happened already in data center. But the change we see is that the location is also virtual. So now data center location is not fixed. The one day the data is in one place, and the next day it's been transferred to another, and then next day it's been transferred to another. And wherever the data's location go, the ownership will go with it. So for this example, the best example I would think of is Google App Engine and Amazon Elastic Cloud. Those two clouds are have so much access to so many data centers that they just can't stay on one place forever. So that's all, guys. This reference model, that's all for the reference model by the Microsoft for the virtualization. So just let's move on to the next facts. So some more facts here are increasing the set point temperature in your data center. So what is set point temperature? You will see that set point temperature is a particular temperature at which the room in which the servers are kept in, the SSDs are kept in, so that the data would not be lost and SSDs will not get defective. Okay. So for maintaining that temperature, we have to use so much cooling. Okay, so much cooling that even the workers they working at data centers started wearing jackets. The temperature is too low. So just by increasing the temperature a little, the weight on the coolant and cooling system will get low, and it will result in low consumption of power by the cooling system, which all results in 4 to 5% increase in energy, reduction in energy consumption, which will in the end contribute to our carbon cycle. So, and the next fact we have is data centers produce around 0.3% of the world's CO2 emissions. The data center produce around 0.3%. So many of you would be thinking that how can a data center can produce CO2 emissions? There is no burning of fossil fuels or anything. But yes, the CO2 emission is being made by data centers. The servers are working. The transportation is still being conducted there to bring new servers and to eject the old servers. So transportation is working. In transportation, there is fuel is burning, the CO2 is emitting. So that's it, guys. The 0.3% of CO2 emissions comes from there. The airline industry is in the same way produces 0.6%, and the steel industry produces 1% of the total CO2 emissions. According to a study conducted by the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, PDF, DC, that is direct current delivery systems can be 20% more or more efficient than current AC alternating systems, be more reliable and potentially cost less in the long run. So the point of the meaning of this point is that all the servers and all the routers and all the networks and all the electronic devices uses direct current. Okay, the alternated current comes to our plugs, and the adapters converted into DC with a specific voltage and current. So in that conversion, some fraction of energy is lost as heat and and by other factors. So that fraction of the energy can be saved if we start using DC primarily. Okay, so that's it guys for the facts. So now we'll move on to the carbon footprint and see what it is and how do we calculate it. So what is a carbon footprint? A carbon footprint is the amount of greenhouse gases, primarily carbon dioxide, released into the atmosphere by a particular human activity. Even you sitting there watching me right now are producing carbon footprint, are producing carbon dioxide without you even knowing. Amazing, isn't it, guys? A carbon footprint can be a broad measure or be applied to the actions of an individual, a family, an event, an organization, or even an entire nation. It is usually measured as tons of CO2 emitted per year, and a number that can be supplemented by tons of CO2 equivalent gases, including methane, nitrous oxide, and other greenhouse gases. And at the bottom, you can see a picture. It is showing how it works. See, their fuel is burning, there's emission, and this transportation, that's emission. Electricity, that's emission. The factories, emission. Gas, emission. Even the LPG we are using is emission. The transportation that bringing LPG as in the form of cylinders to our home is emission. So everywhere you can see every single activities will contribute to this emission. So how do we calculate it? When calculating a carbon footprint, a lot of factors are taken into consideration. For example, driving to the grocery store burns a certain amount of fuel, and fossil fuels are the primary sources of greenhouse gas. But that grocery store is powered by electricity and its employees probably drove to the work, so the store has its own carbon footprint. In addition, the product that the store sells were all shipped there, means transportation is used, and then the trucks would be used, and the trucks will burn fossil fuels, and there is our CO2. So that must also be factored in the total carbon footprint. Beyond that, the fruits, vegetables, and meats that the store sells were all grown or raised on farms, a process that produces methane, which has a greenhouse effect 25 times greater than CO2. So there's your fact, guys. Methane has 25 times greater effect than CO2 in greenhouse. So all of these elements must be combined to understand the full carbon footprint. So we cannot leave even a single factor in calculating the carbon footprint. So let's go to the next slide and see what's our carbon footprint. So how you can calculate yours? Although adding up one's individual's carbon footprint can be difficult, online calculators can do some of the work for you, giving a rough estimate of your carbon footprint based on the size of your household, the efficiency of your appliances, how much you drive, how much you fly, what you eat, how much you recycle. This isn't perfect, but it is a rough idea or a good way to measure your activities, so you can understand roughly how much CO2 they generate and take steps to reduce your carbon footprints. So let's just calculate our carbon footprint. Let's go to a site at Google. Here it is. So now here we can see that there are various factors. First we have to set the country, then we have to set in which period, specific period we are calculating hours. Okay. So next we are, here is the house. So we can see that there is all the necessities in the house we are provided. That is electricity, natural gas, heating, oil, coal, LPG, propane, wooden pallets. And as you start filling them, they will be converted into carbons, tons of carbons, and would be added to this final one. Okay. So, for example, I like to ride motorbike. I had a 155cc motorbike, so I will just jump to it, and then I will just fill here my mileage, that is 60 already filled, and then 60 kilometers per liter is my mileage. And what's my bike? It's a medium motorcycle with 155cc, so medium motorbike. So now the efficiency, you can see it is showing the efficiency in gram per kilometer. Okay, so if we calculate and add to the footprint, so here it is 0.01 metric tons of CO2 is my motorbike footprint that I am riding every day. Okay, so let's just go to the next option, bus and rail. Okay, so for example, I live in Haridwar, and when I go to school, go to college, I use a bus. Okay, Bhimtal is around 250 kilometers from my house, so a full round of 250 kilometers to Haridwar to Bhimtal from Haridwar and back to Haridwar will cost me 500 kilometers. Okay, so I will just write 500 kilometers in bus and calculate bus and rail footprint. So as you can see, there is 0.05 metric tons of CO2 I am producing just by traveling, just by paying 250 amount of rupees. I am producing it, and it will be added to my carbon footprint that I will be producing by all these factors: clothes, textiles, shoes, paper-based products, computer, IT equipments, television, and many more. So every single activity we do will affect the carbon cycle and will produce carbon dioxide, which will act as a greenhouse effect and obviously increases the global warming effect. So let's move on to our next slide. And the next slide, there is a caricature. So there is a caricature from the gist of it. You can already see it's like a Santa Claus, a kid, and Christmas tree. It's all also going with the theme of Christmas. That's around the corner. So let's just start. So the kid is saying, just to make it very clear, Santa, I'm not willing to accept the PlayStation 3, where it's pretty outdated now. PlayStation 5 has been launched, so we will change it. PlayStation 5, as long as you're not able to give me some numbers about its carbon footprints. So what we wanted in today's generation is this kind of awareness about its surrounding, that even the kid before getting a PlayStation 5, which he is not even buying, is asking about what its carbon footprint, because if he bought it, he will contribute to the death cycle that's been running behind our back. Okay, so that's kind of awareness. So how would a PlayStation 5 would produce a carbon footprint? Of course, the company producing it, the factory producing it, and the transportation of materials, plus the hazardous metals that's in use in the chipset, which AMD will fit inside it, and the liquid metal cooling that will require the mercury, which when mixed with water, with groundwater, will produce methylate, which can give us chronic brain disease. So it's very fatal. So this kid want to know behind the PlayStation 5 production carbon footprint. So let's just move on to the next slide. In the next slide, we can see that there is Blackle's Site. Blackle's Site is a website powered by Google Custom Search, created by Heat Media, which aims to save energy by displaying a black background and using grayish-white font color for search results. Blackle saves energy because the screen is predominantly black. Set Blackle as well as your home page, of course, to save CO2. So you can see that Blackle is a site. So actually, I have the site open here. This is the site I was talking about, the Blackle site, a Heat Media site. As you can see, here it is a number. If you zoom your meet screen, you can see this number is still increasing little by little, little by little. It is given a big value of decimals in watt hours saved. It is telling you that if you are using this site instead of a normal Google site, it is saving this much watt hours of power per second, and it is increasing by second. So that's all, guys. You can see that if you so how's it working? As we know that the screen is predominantly black. So when we need to generate white light, we give it too much power, then it generates white light. And in comparison to that, black light requires less power. Black light requires less power as screen is predominantly black, so we don't have to supply much power. So in that case, the having a black screen will save more energy than having a bright white screen. On that concept, that site works, and that site will display anything you search. Anything you search, like I will search just Gmail. Anything you search will be in black background and white fonts, which will obviously save energy. So now our case studies have been ended, and we will move on to the next concept, that is of disposal. So how should we dispose the electronic waste, that the servers, unused servers, or the thrown out servers and thrown out routers, and the waste computers that have been used for years and years? How can we manage that? So disposal of these computer components constitute 20 to 50 million tons per year. So 20 to 50 million tons per year the waste produced is generally just computer components. That's about 5% of total waste on the planet. OMG. This waste is called e-waste. Europe has outlawed using landfills for computer components. The Europe continent has outlawed the using landfills for computer components because computer contains harmful substances like lead, cadmium, mercury for liquid cooling, soldering of printed circuits, and semiconductors and resistors, which will accumulate in the groundwater, in the soil again, and which will also accumulate in our crops and drinking water, and in the end they will accumulate in our human body and cause chronic disease. So Europe has banned that. To the next point, toxic chemicals in electronic products can reach into the land over time or are released into the atmosphere, impacting nearby communities and environment. So that's why their disposal is important. This releases heavy metals such as lead, cadmium, mercury into the air and ashes. Here comes the three metals that are known for their notorious behavior in health degradation. So they are all are generally the main source of these in the atmosphere and in our environment are through electronic waste. So that should be controlled. So that's why disposal is important. And for disposal, we require various methods as we will talk in the next slides. So on to the next slide. Here you can see there are two images. One is showing you a lot of desktops, computers, and hard disks thrown out. These are unused. They have been used to the maximum, and now they cannot be used more. The reasons can be plenty. They have become defective, or maybe they are outdated. Their software outdated, their architecture outdated. And on this photo, you can see a similar case. Lots of laptops, mouses, wires. They are not usable anymore. So just scrape them. These just contribute to our face, and these cannot be biodegradable. These are plastics and metals. And scrap metals sometimes when alloyed with some metal which degrade its quality cannot be reused. So these all contribute to our waste, which is harmful for our environment. Okay, so next slide. In the next slide, we can see the green disposal. That is the disposal in the form by using green methods. It generally has the three traditional arms. That is reuse, reduce, recycle. that are modified into newer ones. The reuse is, for example, using if you have a laptop, you will use it for 2 to 3 years, then you will upgrade to some more powerful laptop, and then at the same time there was someone who just want to start using a laptop. So you can just give your laptop to him and he can reuse that product instead of scraping it. Okay. And the another aspect of that would be reduce. Okay. So instead of having 2 or 3 or 4 low power laptop, you can just use one big powerful laptop with larger storage, heavy processing power to contribute all for work. Okay. And at the last is recycle. So recycle in electronic waste is reverted into refurb, that we see that refurb items are now a trend because they just use up used out things and just contribute to our saving waste. So let's just search about, I will show you how big of a market it is. So if we go to Flipkart refurbish, we can see there the tools on, and you can see all these items, they have been refurbed by the companies, and even the warranties are given on them, so that they can be saved from scraping and contributing to waste and be used by normal consumers again. It's a big market and it's actually doing good work also. They also provide these things at a far more affordable prices. So yes, refer is a trend now. So on to the next and the last slide, that is Mercedes-Benz Vision AVPR. So this is a concept by Mercedes-Benz. It is an organism car concept. This car does not use any harmful technology in any form. Even the battery, the Vision AVTR concept is claimed to be powered by a new battery technology. It gets graphene-based organic cell chemistry battery, which is free of rare earth and metals. The battery materials are compostable, recyclable, and claims Mercedes. That's the claims Mercedes made, that the battery materials are compostable and recyclable. See how far we have come, that even the battery materials, the lead and etc. are now compostable and recyclable, that they can be decomposed or they can be recycled and be reused. This car has been made as an example to shorten the gap between the humans and the technology. This car work as an organism. Even the passenger sitting inside it control this car and use his heartbeat to configure as a key and use this car through the senses of his fingertips. Amazing, isn't it? The Vision AVTR concept is an all-green concept that uses all-green technology, and even the interior of it is made from recycled plastic. So or in the end, I can say that we are moving towards a green world. So green technologies and green IT has become a greater part of us. Okay, so accepting these new technologies and having a little of self-awareness about them can save our future. So I request you all to always have enough awareness in yourself whenever you buy any electronic component. Okay, so thank you. That's all.